Gradual recovery in the labor market in the third quarter of 2021 supported by transition to National Recovery Plan. Labor Market Review gives an insight of short-term labor market statistics during the third quarter of 2021, which will enable readers to gauge a comprehensive view on Malaysia's labor market. This report consists of 3 segments, which are labor supply, labor demand and labor productivity, with additional special articles which highlight the most recent labor market issues through statistics. Lesser involvement in the labor market was observed during the third quarter of 2021, as reflected by labor force participation rate, which dropped 0.1 percentage point to 68.3% as against the same quarter of 2020. The number of labor force during the quarter grew 1.1% year-on-year, registering 16.02 million persons, which comprise of 15.27 million employed and 746,000 unemployed. During the same period, employment continued to record a marginal increment of 1.2% year-on-year compared to an annual rise of 2.2% registered in the previous quarter. Hence, the ability of the economy to create employment, as denoted by the employment-to-population ratio, dropped 0.1 percentage point year-on-year to 65.1%. Looking at the distribution of employment in Malaysia, more than half of the employed persons were those with secondary education. In the third quarter of 2021, the number of employed persons with tertiary education continued to rise, posting an increase of 3.8% to 4.97 million persons. In the meantime, the number of employed persons with no formal education increased 64.6% year-on-year to record 584,000 persons during this quarter. This group, which is one of the vulnerable segments of the employed persons, begun to increase since last quarter, partially due to various governments' interventions. Moving on to employment by skill level, skilled employed persons, which composed of 27.9% of total employment, decreased by 3.1% to record 4.26 million persons, while employed in semi-skilled and low-skilled occupations increased during the quarter. Next, in terms of status in employment, employees made up the largest composition at 76.5%. Meanwhile, own account workers composed of 17%, followed by unpaid family workers, 3.4%, and employers, 3.1%. During the quarter, almost all categories recorded increases as against the same quarter in the preceding year, except unpaid family workers. The number of employees edged up at a slower rate of 1.4% as compared to a rise of 3% in the second quarter of 2021. Since only between 60 to 80% of private sector's employees were allowed to work at site on rotation basis depending on the phases of NRP, while permission to expand business operation hours were also granted in stages throughout the third quarter of 2021. The number of employed persons working less than 30 hours per week surged 15% year-on-year to 465,000 persons. Subsequently, out of total employed persons in this category, 70.2% are able and willing to work additional hours, or known as time-related underemployment, encompassing 326,000 persons. The rate of time-related underemployment increased 0.1 percentage point to 2.1% in the third quarter of 2021. In the meantime, the number of tertiary educated employed persons working in semi- and low-skilled occupations recorded an increase of 6.3% as compared to the third quarter of 2020 to record 1.87 million persons. This resulted in the skill-related underemployment rate to edge up by 0.9 percentage points to 37.7%. Moving on to unemployment situation. The number of unemployed persons rose marginally by 0.2% to 746,000 persons. Meanwhile, the unemployment rate in the third quarter of 2021 remained elevated at 4.7%. As against the previous quarter, the unemployment rate decreased 0.1 percentage point following the gradual ease of restrictions according to the phases of the NRP. On the other hand, youth unemployment rate declined 0.9 percentage points to 11.7% as compared to the third quarter of 2020. Nevertheless, the rate remained above 10% since first quarter of 2020. Among the unemployed persons, there were 88.2% actively unemployed. The number increased by 11.1% to record 658,000 persons. As for duration of unemployment, more than half of the actively unemployed persons had been unemployed for less than 3 months, recording 332,000 persons. The share in this category increased from 49.7% from the same quarter last year. Meanwhile, there were 58,000 persons in long-term unemployment, which made up 8.8% of total actively unemployed. In the third quarter of 2021, the number of outside labor force rose 1.4% to 7.43 million persons. During the period, a total of 44.1% was outside labor force due to housework. Besides, nearly half of outside labor force was due to education and training, indicating potential to enter the labor force upon completion of their study. With regard to labor supply situation at state level, 6 states recorded the LFPR exceeding the national rate of 68.3% in the third quarter of 2021. In terms of unemployment, Sabah and Wilayah Persekutuan Labuan still recorded unemployment rates above 8% at 9 and 8.7% respectively. Meanwhile, the lowest unemployment rate was in Wilayah Persekutuan Putrajaya at 1%. In total, 6 states recorded unemployment rate above the national level during the quarter. Looking at the state of labor demand by registered private sector businesses. There were 8.41 million jobs in the economic sector during the third quarter of 2021, dropped 0.8% as compared to the same quarter in the preceding year. The number of filled jobs decreased by 0.7% year-on-year to record 8.23 million as against 8.29 million filled jobs in the third quarter of 2020. Meanwhile, the number of vacancies which reflected jobs opening lessened by 3% to record 174,000 job vacancies in this quarter. The rate of filled jobs and vacancies remained for 5 successive quarters since the third quarter of 2020 at 97.9 and 2.1% respectively. Given that the economy is still adjusting from continuously changing containment measures according to the phases of the NRP, the third quarter of 2021 saw a total of 15,000 jobs created, which was lower by 28.5% compared to 21,000 jobs created during the same quarter a year ago. The number of jobs created in 2020 contracted to 73,000 compared to 104,000 before the outbreak of COVID-19 in 2019. As of the third quarter 2021, 49,000 jobs created were recorded compared to 57,000 during the same period in 2020. It is foreseen that the total number of jobs created for the whole of 2021 will be lower than in 2020 due to slower momentum in demand for labor after the inevitable health crisis escalated earlier this year. During the third quarter of 2021, Malaysia's economy contracted 4.5%. During the same period, employment continued to rise at a slower rate of 1.2% year-on-year compared to a growth of 2.2% in the previous quarter. Thus, the performance of labor productivity expressed as the ratio of value added per employment fell by 5.6% to 21,985 ringgit Malaysia per person during the third quarter of 2021. Against a sluggish economic landscape due to limited operation hours of particular businesses while others remained closed, total hours worked dropped by 3.9% to 8.21 billion hours. Hence, labor productivity measured by value added per hour worked continued to drop, albeit at an improved pace of negative 0.6% in the third quarter of 2021 after registering double-digit decline. This brought the level of labor productivity per hour worked during the quarter to 41 ringgit Malaysia per hour. With the shrinking labor demand and increasing number of potential new entrants into the labor market, continuous reform is required in scaling up jobs opportunities. Hence, long-term ideal interventions may enable better absorption of labor supply into the labor market, and ultimately guarantee rise in efficiency as well as better economic growth prospect. In this regard, seamless integration of macro-statistical indicators and detailed labor market databases across agencies will provide a better chance at frequent and consistent monitoring of the labor market flow and stocks. Further to this, strategic collaborations between public and private sectors will also provide the nudge towards facilitating consistent talent and capacity building, as well as increasing investment in research and technology as part of the strategies to restructure the economy and facilitate skilled jobs creation. More than a month into the fourth quarter of 2021, The public health situation appeared to be improving with the daily new cases reducing to 4-digit. Accelerating vaccination efforts has partly attributed to the phase transition, hence allowing more economic activities to reopen and selected restrictions to be lifted. With these recent positive developments, the economy is anticipated to regain and consequently influence more demand for labor as well as contribute towards better labor market situation in the fourth quarter of 2021. Labor Market Review third quarter of 2021 features two-box articles entitled, Sticky Wages, an Assessment in Malaysia's Manufacturing Sector, and Enhancing Labor Market Information Through an Integrated Platform. The first article presents the emerging empirical evidence of the effects of economic crises on salaries and wages in the manufacturing sector through review of wages level and trend, as well as determination of the wages stickiness in the sector. Based on the findings of this study, it can be concluded that the salaries and wages in the manufacturing sector is sticky, whereby slower demand did not cause wage reduction. As employers sustain or increase wage rate to the retained employees, selected numbers might be laid off, which in turn could result in the increase in the number of unemployment in time of crisis. The next article discusses labor market information landscape in Malaysia, challenges and critical success factor in enhancing labor market information through an integrated platform. With the current economic situation and outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, the requirement of an integrated platform is needed to produce a more granular and holistic statistics. There are many challenges in realizing this effort, namely data availability, data sharing and data standardization in the production of various labor market statistics. To ensure the development of a comprehensive labor market information system, several factors need to be considered, which are resource, technology and strategy. For more information on labor market statistics, please refer to our official website at the following web address.